Commander Jiho sat in the central communications hub of Kepler Station, staring at displays that had turned eerily quiet. For 3 days straight, not a single transmission had come from Earth. No news broadcasts, no trade communications, no simple greeting messages that humans love to send across the galaxy. The third planet of the Sol system had gone completely silent. Run the diagnostic check again, Jiho told his assistant, Lieutenant Mina, who was working at the control panel nearby. Sir, I have already run it 8 times today. All our equipment works perfectly. The problem is not on our end, Mina replied, her voice showing concern. Earth has simply stopped talking. This was very strange. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as the most talkative species anyone had ever met. When they first joined the galactic community 5 years ago, their constant chatter had annoyed many older civilizations. They sent messages about everything, their weather, their food, their entertainment, their politics. Human traders would talk for hours just to sell a simple piece of technology. Their news networks broadcast across dozens of star systems, sharing stories that most aliens found boring but strangely entertaining. The communication networks that connected thousands of worlds had become filled with human voices. They asked questions about everything, offered help to strangers, and shared their culture with anyone willing to listen. Some alien species complained that humans talked too much, but secretly, many had grown used to their cheerful presence in the galactic conversation. Now, that voice had vanished completely. Lieutenant Yuno walked over to Jiho's station with a worried expression. Commander, I have been monitoring all frequencies that humans normally use. Radio waves, quantum channels, even the old electromagnetic signals they still send between their colonies. Everything is dead silent. What do the long-range sensors show? Jiho asked. That is what makes this so strange, sir. Earth looks normal from our scanners. The cities are still lit up at night. Ships move between their orbital stations. Their factories appear to be running. But they are not sending out any communications at all. Jiho stood up and walked to the large viewing window that showed the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, Earth continued to exist, but it had chosen to become invisible in the vast conversation of galactic civilization. News of Earth's silence spread quickly through the communication networks. On the industrial world of Altair Prime, Captain Day received the report while loading cargo from human traders who had arrived just before the silence began. These humans seemed normal, friendly as always, but when asked about their home world, they simply smiled and said they had no new information to share. Something is not right, Captain Day told his crew. I have dealt with human traders for 3 years. They always have news from home. They love talking about Earth, their families, their latest inventions. But these humans act like they have forgotten how to speak about their home world. Admiral Hune of the Hegemony Council sat in her office on the capital world, reading reports from across the galaxy. She had never liked humans much. They were loud, curious, and had a habit of asking uncomfortable questions during diplomatic meetings. Their sudden silence should have been a relief, but instead, it made her nervous. Technical problems, she said to her aide. Humans use primitive technology compared to most civilizations. Something probably broke, and they are too proud to ask for help fixing it. But Captain Su, who served as Admiral Hune's expert on human behavior, disagreed. With respect, I have spent 2 years studying human communication systems. They are not as advanced as ours, but they are surprisingly reliable. Humans designed their systems to keep working even when damaged. This silence feels deliberate. Deliberate? Why would an entire planet choose to stop communicating? I do not know. But humans rarely do anything without a good reason, even when that reason seems strange to us. Admiral Hune looked at the star charts showing the human territories. Earth sat at the center of a small but growing network of human colonies and trading posts. These colonies had also gone quiet, but reports suggested they were still active and functioning normally. What are they planning? She wondered aloud. On distant trading stations, alien merchants who regularly dealt with humans began to notice changes. The humans who were already away from Earth when the silence began seemed different somehow. They completed their business deals efficiently but without their usual friendly conversation. When asked about Earth, they would pause for a moment, as if listening to something only they could hear, then politely change the subject. Some aliens reported that these humans seemed to be waiting for something, though none could explain what gave them that impression. Dr. Wook, a scientist studying human behavior at the Galactic Research Institute, compiled reports from across known space. Every human settlement, every human ship, every human trading post had stopped sending communications home to Earth at exactly the same moment 3 days ago. It was as if someone had given a signal that every human in the galaxy had heard and obeyed instantly. This level of coordination is impossible for most species, Dr. Wook wrote in his report. It suggests either very advanced communication technology that we have not detected, or some form of shared consciousness that we do not understand. Admiral Hune finally made her decision. The silence from humanity had lasted long enough, and it was making everyone nervous. Prepare a reconnaissance fleet. Send Commander Su to Sol System. I want to know what the humans are doing, and I want to know now. As the order went out to assemble ships for the journey to Earth, none of them realized they were about to discover that humanity had been preparing for something that would change the entire galaxy forever. Commander Su's fleet moved slowly through the outer edges of Sol System, their sensors scanning everything carefully. She had brought ships from 3 different species, her own command vessel, 2 Altarian science ships, and a Krillian escort that could fight if needed. Nobody knew what they might find when they reached Earth. All stations report normal readings, announced Lieutenant Rin from the sensor station. Jupiter's mining operations are active. The orbital platforms around Saturn are functioning. But still no communications from anywhere. Su studied the displays showing human activity throughout their solar system. Everything looked exactly as it should. Mining ships moved between asteroids, collecting metals and rare elements. Transport vessels carried supplies between the planets. The massive space stations that humans had built around their gas giants continued their work of refining fuel and manufacturing goods. But the silence remained complete. Try hailing them again, Su ordered. Communications Officer Tai activated the broad-spectrum transmitter. Attention all human vessels and stations. This is Commander Su of the Hegemony Reconnaissance Fleet. We are here to check on your welfare. Please respond on any frequency. The answer was the same as it had been for the past 6 hours of their approach, nothing. Commander, called out Navigator Bin, I am detecting a large human warship near Jupiter's 4th moon. It appears to be stationary. Su looked at the sensor readings. The ship was identified as UES Harmony, a dreadnought-class vessel that served as flagship for the human Jupiter Defense Fleet. It hung motionless in space, its running lights active but no other signs of activity. Take us closer, but maintain defensive distance, Su commanded. I do not like the feeling of this. As they approached the massive human warship, more details became clear. The ship's hull showed no signs of damage. Its weapon systems were powered down. Life support appeared to be functioning normally. But it did not respond to any attempts at communication, and no movement could be detected anywhere on its exterior. Commander, I am reading approximately 800 life signs aboard that vessel, reported medical scanner Yo. All appear to be alive and healthy, but their brain activity patterns are unusual. Unusual how? The patterns are too regular, too synchronized. Normal brain activity shows constant small variations, even during sleep. These readings show humans whose minds are operating in perfect rhythm with each other. Su felt a chill run through her body. She had heard stories about alien species that could link their minds together, but humans had never shown any such ability. They were strongly individual, often arguing among themselves even when they agreed on basic facts. Prepare a boarding party, she decided. I want to see what is happening on that ship. The boarding shuttle carried 6 members of Su's crew to the docking bay of the human vessel. The bay doors opened automatically as they approached, suggesting that someone or something was aware of their presence. But when they entered the ship's corridors, they found something that made everyone deeply uncomfortable. Human crew members stood at their stations, performing their duties with mechanical precision. Their eyes were open and they appeared fully conscious, but none of them acknowledged the alien visitors. A human engineer continued checking power systems, reading displays and making adjustments, but when Lieutenant Mina spoke directly to him, he showed no sign of hearing her voice. It is like they are sleepwalking, Mina whispered to her teammate. The boarding party made their way to the ship's bridge, where they found Captain Han sitting in his command chair. Like the others, he appeared healthy and aware, but completely unresponsive to outside contact. His eyes stared straight ahead at the main display screen, which showed star charts of the local system. Communications specialist Gil accessed the ship's computer logs while the others tried unsuccessfully to get reactions from the human crew. What he found in the records made him call for Commander Su immediately. You need to hear this, Gil said over the communication link. I found the final log entry made by this ship's captain. It was recorded exactly 72 hours ago, at the precise moment when all human communications stopped. Play it, Su ordered. Captain Han's voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different from the casual way humans normally spoke. His words were careful and deliberate, as if he was speaking for more than just himself. Personal log, Captain Han speaking. The silence protocol is now active. Earth has made its decision, and we support that choice completely. All human vessels and installations are entering standby mode. We are preparing for what must come next. Our individual voices join the greater purpose. We will hold the line until the task is finished. End log. The boarding party exchanged worried glances. The message raised more questions than it answered, but one thing was clear: humanity had deliberately chosen this silence, and it was part of some larger plan. Commander, Sensor Operator Kyung's voice came urgently over the communication system from the main fleet. Long-range sensors are detecting massive construction activity in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Whatever the humans are building there, it is enormous. Sue ordered her boarding party to return immediately. As their shuttle flew back toward the reconnaissance fleet, she looked out the viewport at the human dreadnought floating silently behind them. 800 humans aboard that ship, all alive, all aware, but all part of something larger than themselves. Set course for the asteroid belt, she commanded when the boarding party returned. Maximum sensor sweeps. I want to know what humanity is really doing out here. The fleet moved deeper into Sol system, carrying observers who were about to discover that Earth's silence was only the beginning of something that would shake the entire galaxy. The asteroid belt had been transformed into something that defied every law of engineering that Commander Sue knew. Where once only scattered rocks and mining stations had floated in the dark space between Mars and Jupiter, now stood a construction project so massive it could be seen from millions of kilometers away. By the ancient gods, whispered Science Officer Yul as the main display showed what humanity had built. This is impossible. Stretching across nearly 50 million cubic kilometers of space, a network of interconnected structures formed patterns that hurt the mind to look at directly. The constructions were not ships or stations in any traditional sense. They appeared to be part machine, part living tissue, and part something else entirely that their senses could not identify. How long would it take to build something like this? Asked Navigator Bin. Using conventional construction methods and the resources available in this system. Yul calculated quickly. At least 50 years with the combined industrial capacity of a dozen worlds. But these readings suggest it was completed in less than 6 months. Lieutenant Rin studied the energy signatures coming from the massive structure. Commander, the power levels are unlike anything in our databases. They are drawing energy directly from space itself, and somehow converting it into forms that our instruments cannot recognize. Commander Sue ordered the fleet to move closer, but cautiously. As they approached, more details became clear. The structure was not just large, it was actively growing, adding new sections to itself even as they watched. Construction drones moved between the various components, but these were not normal mechanical devices. They appeared to be guided by some form of intelligence that coordinated millions of individual actions into a single, unified purpose. Accessing human data networks, reported Communications Officer Tai. I am finding fragments of information in their public databases, but much of it appears to be encoded or incomplete. What can you determine? References to something called Project Unity, begun 8 months ago. Research into consciousness transfer technology, quantum field manipulation, and something they call collective neural integration. But the technical details are beyond my understanding. Dr. Nari, the fleet's expert in alien psychology, studied the data fragments with growing amazement. Commander, if I am reading this correctly, the humans have developed a way to temporarily merge individual consciousness into a collective network while maintaining access to each person's knowledge and memories. You mean they can link their minds together? More than that. According to these fragments, they can combine the thinking power of millions of individuals while still preserving what makes each person unique. It is like having millions of experts working on the same problem at the same time, but with perfect communication between them. So try to understand the implications. So the 8 billion humans on Earth are all thinking together as one giant mind. That appears to be correct. But there is more. Nari pointed to additional data on her screen. This consciousness merger is connected to the massive structure in the asteroid belt. They are using their combined mental power to control machinery that can manipulate space and time itself. The idea was terrifying. Humans, individually, were clever but limited. But 8 billion human minds working together, controlling technology that could bend the laws of physics, what could such a force accomplish? Why would they do this? Sue wondered aloud. The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the human databases, Intelligence Analyst Guild discovered fragments of archaeological data from human deep space expeditions. The information was incomplete, but it told a story that made everyone on the bridge feel cold fear. The humans found something during their exploration of dead star systems beyond the galactic rim. Ancient ruins left by civilizations that disappeared millions of years ago. But these were not ordinary extinctions. Guild displayed images on the main screen, photographs of dead worlds that showed signs of having once supported massive civilizations. Cities that had been home to billions of beings, now turned to dust. But the pattern of destruction was unlike anything caused by war or natural disaster. According to human analysis, these civilizations were consumed. Something absorbed not just their populations, but their planets, their stars, even the space around their systems. The humans found evidence of this happening to dozens of different species across thousands of years. What kind of enemy could do such a thing? The human researchers called them the Devourers. Entities that exist partially outside normal spacetime, consuming entire civilizations to fuel their own growth. The archaeological evidence suggests they move through the galaxy in cycles, appearing every few million years to feed on whatever life has developed. Commander Sue felt her stomach drop. Are you saying these Devourers are returning? According to the human data, yes. 2 years ago, their deep space monitoring stations detected signs of the approaching threat. Long-range sensors at the very edge of the galaxy began picking up the same spatial distortions found at the sites of the ancient destructions. Now the human behavior made terrible sense. Faced with an enemy that had destroyed countless civilizations, humanity had chosen to unite their entire species into a single defensive force. The massive construction in the asteroid belt was not just a machine, it was a weapon designed to fight beings that could manipulate reality itself. How long do we have? Sue asked quietly. Gil checked the human calculations. Based on their projections, the Devourers will reach the first inhabited systems in approximately 6 months. The outer colonies will be the first targets, followed by the major worlds near the galactic rim. And no one else in the galaxy knows about this threat. The humans tried to warn the Hegemony Council 2 years ago, but their evidence was dismissed as speculation. The council believed humans were trying to gain attention or create panic to increase their own importance in galactic politics. Sue closed her eyes, understanding now why Earth had gone silent. Humanity had realized they would have to face this threat alone, so they had transformed themselves into something capable of fighting an enemy that existed beyond normal understanding. The silence from Earth was not surrender, it was preparation for a war that would determine whether any life in the galaxy would survive. Space itself began to change around Sol system. Commander Sue watched her instruments with growing alarm as readings that had been stable for billions of years started to fluctuate in impossible ways. The stars in nearby systems flickered like candles in the wind, their light bending and shifting as if something was pulling energy directly from their cores. This cannot be happening, muttered Science Officer Yull, checking his equipment for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. Matter and energy do not behave this way. The laws of physics are being rewritten around us. The massive human construction in the asteroid belt had begun to glow with a light that hurt to look at directly. Streams of energy flowed between its countless components, creating patterns that seemed to move in dimensions beyond the normal 3. The structure pulsed with a rhythm that felt strangely familiar, like a heartbeat magnified billions of times. Lieutenant Rin reported from the sensor station, her voice filled with disbelief. Commander, the humans are somehow redirecting energy from multiple star systems. I am detecting power flows that should not be possible over such distances. They are treating space itself like a machine they can control. How much power are they channeling? Sue asked. More than the total energy output of our homeworld sun. And the levels are still increasing. Navigation Officer Bin suddenly called out in alarm. Jupiter is moving. Everyone turned to look at the displays showing the gas giant. Indeed, the massive planet was slowly shifting its position, not randomly but with clear purpose. Its trajectory was changing to align with the human construction, as if the entire planet was becoming part of their weapon system. They are turning their solar system into a single massive device, Dr. Nari observed with scientific fascination mixed with terror. Not just the artificial structures, but the planets themselves, even their sun. Everything is becoming part of one enormous machine. As they watched, the sun began to pulse with unnatural rhythm. Each pulse sent waves of energy racing outward, not the normal light and heat that stars produce, but something completely different that their instruments could barely detect. These energy waves reached the human construction and were somehow focused, concentrated, and redirected toward the edges of the galaxy. Then, without warning, the silence broke. It did not break with words or normal communication signals. Instead, mathematical concepts flooded directly into the minds of every living being in Commander Su's fleet. The information bypassed their communication equipment entirely, appearing in their thoughts as pure knowledge that they somehow understood despite never having learned the symbols being used. The message was simple but terrifying in its implications. They come. We hold the line. Tell the galaxy to prepare. Communications Officer Tai struggled to process what had happened. Commander, that transmission came from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was not sent through space, it was placed directly into our consciousness. How is such a thing possible? Before Su could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. Long-range sensors across civilized space were simultaneously detecting massive distortions at the galactic rim. Space itself was being torn and twisted by the approach of something that existed beyond normal understanding. Emergency transmission from Hegemony Command, Tai reported urgently. Multiple sectors at the galactic edge have gone completely dark. No communications, no sensor readings, nothing. It is as if entire star systems have simply ceased to exist. The Devourers had arrived. On the main display, Su watched as humanity's weapon system reached full power. The sun's unusual pulses synchronized with the asteroid belt construction, creating a focused beam of energy that reached across dozens of light-years in an instant. The beam struck something at the edge of sensor range, something that had been invisible until the moment it was hit. Target eliminated, reported Sensor Operator Kyung with amazement. Whatever was there has been completely destroyed. But I cannot understand how the humans detected it when our most advanced sensors showed nothing. The human collective consciousness sent another direct mental transmission to the fleet. Scout force neutralized. Main enemy arrives in 6 standard hours. Recommend all vessels withdraw to minimum safe distance. Commander Su realized they were witnessing the opening moves of a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The enemy approaching from the galactic rim could manipulate reality itself, making them nearly invisible to normal detection methods. Only humanity's consciousness-merged approach, combining billions of minds with reality-bending technology, could effectively engage such a threat. Send emergency communications to all hegemony worlds, Su ordered. Full priority transmission to Admiral Hyun and the Council. The humans were right about the threat, and they are the only ones capable of fighting it. As her communications officer began broadcasting warnings across the galaxy, more reports came in from the galactic rim. Entire civilizations were vanishing without trace. Worlds that had been home to billions of beings simply stopped existing, consumed by entities that moved through space like living holes in reality. But here in Sol System, humanity was ready. Their sun pulsed with controlled power, their planets aligned into defensive positions, and their collective consciousness guided weapons that could strike across impossible distances. 8 billion human minds worked as one, their individual personalities temporarily merged into something greater while still maintaining what made them human. Message from Earth, Tai announced. It is coming through normal communication channels this time. A human voice, speaking for an entire species, filled the bridge. We are humanity. We have seen what approaches, and we choose to stand against it. Our individual voices have joined to become something capable of holding the line. To all civilizations of the galaxy, take shelter, prepare your defenses, and know that Earth fights not just for humanity, but for all life that calls this galaxy home. The war for the galaxy's survival had begun. The galaxy responded to humanity's warning with unprecedented speed. Within hours of Commander Su's emergency transmission, every major civilization began mobilizing their fleets. But as the assembled armadas reached the outer systems, they discovered a horrible truth: their weapons were useless against the Devourers. Admiral Hyun watched from her command ship as a combined fleet of 30,000 vessels engaged the first wave of enemy forces near the Centauri system. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes struck the approaching entities with enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The weapons passed through the Devourers as if they were shooting at empty space. They exist partially outside our reality, reported Science Commander Jun over the communication link. Our weapons cannot touch something that is not fully present in our dimension. The Devourers swept through the defensive fleet like ghosts, consuming ships and crews without slowing down. Entire vessels simply faded from existence, their matter and energy absorbed to fuel the enemy's advance toward the inner systems. But humanity's approach proved different. From Sol System, focused beams of reality-anchoring energy reached across space to trap the Devourers in normal dimensions where conventional weapons could harm them. Each successful anchor allowed the galactic fleets to destroy enemy forces that had seemed unstoppable moments before. Captain Swar coordinated supply lines, rushing fuel and ammunition to human installations throughout their territory. The collective consciousness was fighting battles across multiple dimensions simultaneously, but each engagement drained their strength. Individual human minds flickered out like dying stars as the strain of maintaining unity while manipulating cosmic forces took its toll. Dr. Wook, monitoring the situation from a research station, watched in fascination and horror as humanity paid the price for their defense of the galaxy. "They are burning themselves out," he reported to Admiral Hune. "Each time they anchor the enemy in our reality, some of their people die from the mental strain. They are literally sacrificing their lives to give us a chance to fight." More civilizations joined the effort. The crystalline Zerati provided their understanding of quantum mechanics, helping to stabilize the reality anchoring process. The Altarians linked their computational networks to humanity's consciousness, sharing processing power to reduce the mental burden on human minds. Even the warlike Krillians sent their most powerful ships to protect human supply convoys. But the primary burden remained with Earth. Lieutenant Hannah, stationed aboard one of the support vessels, watched through her senses as the final battle approached. The Devourer's main force had reached the edge of Sol system, bringing with them a level of reality distortion that threatened to tear space itself apart. Stars in nearby systems began to fade as the enemy consumed their energy from across impossible distances. "Earth's biosphere is changing," she reported with amazement. "The planet's magnetic field is synchronizing with the consciousness network. Somehow, they are maintaining normal life while channeling cosmic forces through their entire world." The human collective had turned Earth itself into the ultimate weapon. 8 billion minds linked not just with each other, but with their planet's core, creating a massive reality anchor that prevented the Devourers from using their space-folding abilities anywhere near Sol system. Trapped in normal dimensions, the reality-consuming entities found themselves vulnerable to the concentrated firepower of the assembled galactic fleet. The battle raged for 18 hours. Humanity held the anchor steady while ships from a dozen civilizations poured destructive energy into the trapped Devourers. Each enemy destroyed weakened the others, as the entities were somehow connected across dimensions. But the cost to humanity was enormous. Commander Jiho, monitoring the situation from Kepler Station, watched the human casualty reports with growing sadness. Millions of minds had burned out maintaining the collective consciousness under impossible strain. Entire cities on Earth had fallen silent as their populations gave their lives to power the reality anchor. Then, suddenly, it was over. The last Devourer fell to concentrated fire from the galactic fleet, its destruction sending ripples through dimensions that could be felt across the galaxy. The threat that had consumed countless civilizations over millions of years had finally been stopped. But victory came at a price that would change humanity forever. The collective consciousness began to dissolve as the immediate danger passed. Individual human voices slowly returned to the communication networks, but they were different now. Deeper, more thoughtful, carrying echoes of the unity they had briefly shared. Months later, Diplomatic Officer Ray made first contact with post-Silence Earth. She found humans who had been permanently transformed by their experience. Children born after the collective consciousness event seemed to share thoughts and dreams without effort. Adults maintained their individual personalities but could sense each other's emotions and intentions in ways that transcended normal communication. "We are still ourselves," explained the human representative, a woman named Oon who somehow spoke for her entire species without losing her individual identity. "We remember what it felt like to be truly united. We remember the cost of protecting life in this galaxy. That knowledge changes who we are." The transformation went beyond mental connection. Human technology had advanced by centuries during their brief unity. Their understanding of space, time, and consciousness had grown beyond what any single species had achieved. They had become something new, still recognizably human, but evolved into ideal guardians for galactic civilization. Admiral Hune filed her final report on the crisis. Humanity sacrificed their old way of life to save us all. They chose to become something greater than what they were, not for power or glory, but because the galaxy needed protectors who understood the true cost of survival. Earth's communications had returned, but the silence was not forgotten. It had become a promise that echoed through every human transmission. "We are here. We hold the line. You are not alone." The galaxy was safe, watched over by guardians who had learned to unite without losing what made them human.